In case you joined us, this is KBC News Check, and we today are looking at the legislative agenda. Reason being, both houses of parliament are resuming sitting today, and earlier on we had a candid interview with the clerk of the Senate, just outlining some of the things that they will be looking out for. And as just mentioned, the constitution of key Senate committees, Division of Revenue Bill 2025-2026, equitable share, as he has mentioned, has risen to 387 billion from 190 in 2013. Also, there are other public participation. They say, of course, we do not have a Public Participation Act, but public participation is still enshrined in the Constitution of Kenya. But without further ado, let's discuss matters legislation. Allow me to rope in my panel of experts, beginning from my immediate left. We have Mr. Charles Bilali, and Mr. Charles Bilali is a political analyst and governance expert, and also a diplomacy and international relations expert. And just next to him, karibu sana.
Thank you, Ben, and welcome.
And just next to him, we have Diego Ngoge Wilson, who is a governance expert and also versed very well in matters that we'll be looking at today. Diego, it's been a while. Welcome back.
Thank you, Ben, and the viewers.
Perhaps to begin with you, Charles, we've heard from the clerk of the National Senate. What are we looking at, and what are some of the things that should be on the legislative agenda? We know there are a number of things that they have not mentioned, but they will still be among what Senate will be looking at. Before we look at the legislative agenda of the National Assembly, which has hit a snag, and especially during after the three-judge bench ruling last week.
Thank you, Ben. I take this opportunity first to say sorry to the family of the Speaker of Senate, Amason Kingi, who lost the father. And to take your question is that, of course, parliaments are resuming, both the Senate and National Assembly, to discuss issues arising, and also to pass bills that have not been passed. Of course, and you know that the work of the Senate and the National Assembly is to pass bills and also debate on matters that are rising, such as the security concerns on our international boundary. For instance, of course, I know what they will be discussing, and maybe this one is for their input. They will also be discussing about the vetting of identity cards as matters of security.
Yeah, it's a good thing that even the clerk has mentioned that.
Yeah, that's a very important thing, which they will discuss. And you know, always, when a president makes an announcement that that vetting is stopped, then in another way, it may not only become a law, but it may be assumed that it is a law. And some of this may be also get into quagmire because of our international boundary. And the question we'll be asking is whether, because most of us, like me, we both come from Kenya and maybe Tanzania, like Mijikenda, Digos. So we will want to hear also, are the Digos also in this deal of the Northern Corridor?
All right, we will be talking about that because we also have some minutes to talk about the state of the nation. And it's a very, very valid point, because the Turkanas have asked the same question, because they also share the boundary with two countries, and also the Suba on the left side of the country. We will be talking about that as well. But Diego, the clerk has mentioned that since 2013, we have been able to jump from a high of 100 billion to 387, almost 400 billion. This is a success of devolution, so to speak.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. You see, the thing is not about really the budgets and how the economy is doing well. Is the usage of the factors that have given us that money. Because you could be given like 10 billion and they see what it has done. You could have 300 billion, but then this money is not visible in terms of developments. And so, whereas I think we have done well to some extent in terms of devolving governments, I think we are yet to see the real fruits of development. Much of money is going into recurrent budgets. People are employing people, their budgets and family relatives. They are wanting the political beneficiaries, the people that are supporting you to be a politician or rather to get the position. And so we've not had the loyalty of the governorship and the governors of Kenya using their money in the areas of interest to the normal or the rather common mwananchi. And this has really affected the entire economy, because if the county governments are productive enough, then the economy will grow from the grassroots. And that was the core mandate. I think that was one of the things that the UNDA campaigned with, that we want to come from the bottom, going up. And this bottom cannot really grow from just the national government. The county government must play the role. We must see where the 3 billions are. And we cannot, at the moment, I don't think we can really see that.
And Charles, maybe you can point out where we are headed as devolution, because a lot has been said about devolution and its work in progress, because we just slightly over 10 years since we started devolution. And from 100 billion to almost 400 billion. I would like to pick your mind in regards to that as a success of devolution.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. You see, devolution is a matter that Kenyan voted for. And it is a good thing anyway. We have seen what development has been since the devolution started. For instance, our county, which is Kwale, roads are being, they are constructing roads. There are more classes, that one falls under education sector. They, of course, with devolution. We have more hospital also being constructed. And we have also equipment, new equipment that treats, analyze the cancer because of devolution. So when we talk about 100 billions to 300 billions, I think this money, nobody in Kenya can shy away and say that devolution has not worked. Devolution has worked. In fact, we can see that it has worked in many parts, not only in Kwale, it has even worked here in Nairobi. We can see, we have level 5, level 6 hospital in different counties. For instance, Ben, when we approached the COVID-19 period, we had monies sent to counties, of course, to buy beds and screening equipment, which I think this money is even less. They must also top it up to around 500 billion. Yes.
Yes, a work in progress. Again, Diego, the Clerk of the National Assembly, of the Senate, apologies, has mentioned matters to do with public participation. And
yes,
I believe the year 2024 was really a Damascus moment for Kenyans in terms of the public participation. We do remember what happened to the finance bill, and we also saw what happened during the public participation exercise during the impeachment of former deputy president. That just shows us how we really need a public participation act or public participation law. And the clerk has mentioned that they are trying to actually to even give it more powers. But I think, if you ask me as a Kenyan, this is the right time to put in the framework so that we may have a public participation act. Not just that it's, yes, indeed it is enshrined in the Constitution, but itself as a standalone law.
Yeah, I think it's just to be serious on the law, because to be sincere, I have worked with the government, Ben.
Yes.
And public participation is actually getting to know the true needs of the people. You let the people speak for what they would want the government to do for themselves, for the people. And we have, what we've lacked, I think, is the people who are doing the job at the ground, especially the guys who are sent to go and do the public participation. Some of them have fixed minds. And when you go there with a fixed mind that we need to buy a car, then you meet people telling you, no, we need a motorbike before a car. Then it becomes a problem. So we need people to be easy, and people should realize that the power belongs to the electorate, to the people, such that you are able to listen to them. I tend to slightly disagree with my brother here, because as much as devolution is meant for so much benefit that all of us were waiting to see, to be sincere, Ben, even the 300 billion that we are talking about, you cannot really see it. It's good. We have seen some governors have really done well. You have seen Murang'a is doing very well. A number of counties like Meru is doing far much better than many other counties. But then I think we can do better. Even in terms of revenue collection, actually none of the counties in Kenya that has achieved its target in revenue collection. And most of these counties are expecting the national government to give them money, whereas there is a law also that permits them to collect some revenues from certain quarters. So on the area of public participation, I think I concur with the Senate, the clerk of the Senate, that we require it as a standalone law so that it can be implemented with boundaries. Because now it's like, it's a norm. This is supposed to be done. Whatsoever way it will be done,
just do it.
People can sign the papers that this is what we sent. Then you can go write a report and sign the papers for yourselves.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, let's now shift our focus from the Senate to the National Assembly. I think that's where we will see a lot of drama. And last week, Justice Chigiti, Justice Lawrence Mugambi, and Justice Jairus Ngaah made landmark ruling, I should say, Bilali, and said that Kenya Kwanza is not the majority party in the Assembly. What do we expect today in the afternoon?
They made a ruling on that matter, yes. But you must remember that we live in Kenya. We don't live somewhere else or above Kenya. And of course, as we talk now, some of the members of the opposition are working with the Kenya Kwanza. That was just a ruling on whether the Kenya Kwanza government has a majority in the government. Remember that immediately after taking power through this regime, the president signed the agreements with several parties, including UGM from the Northern Eastern and other parties. And they agreed to collaborate and legislate issues concern their goals and achievement. One of the goals that Kenya Kwanza was to achieve, of course, was affordable housing. The next one was manufacturing. The third one was health sector, like the SHA thing. So I'm not expecting much quagmire in the National Assembly, because these people are working together. And let me draw you back again, Ben, to what happened just last year. Last year, all MPs, members of parliament, voted to remove the deputy president of this republic. So that togetherness is still there, and the ruling of the judiciary of these judges will not make a big impact on it.
But I believe, as all Kenyans, we also need to follow the law. But Diego, I remember the Wiper leader, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, urging his members, his Wiper lieutenants, to occupy the majority seats when they resume today. But somebody would think and would aver that Wiper left Azimio, NAK Kenya had left Azimio, you see. And of course, there is the ODM part or wing that is working with government, and there's the ODM wing that is still in opposition. How is this going to pan out? But hold the thought. Let's first of all cross over back to the Senate. My colleague Abdiaziz Hashima is now done with the clerk of the Senate and now gives us a feel of how Parliament is, and especially we are expecting both houses to be in session this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Ben Troy and Joe. We're still roaming around the corridors of the August House. We want to talk to a few legislators to tell us what is in store for Parliament as and when it resumes this afternoon. You know, both houses, the National as well as the Senate, is resuming this afternoon. Joining us is none other than Sirisia Member of Parliament, John Waluke, just to tell us about what is in store for the National Assembly. Mheshimiwa, kindly join us from here. Tell us, Mheshimiwa, what is in store for the National Assembly as when you resume?
There are so many bills, pending bills, that we did not finish before we went for recess, and motions, questions that we are coming to clear them before we start other things.
And you do know, Mheshimiwa, the bone of contention will be in terms of who's the majority, who's the minority, given that the High Court gave that particular ruling. In your view, what are your take on that?
I think the majority or minority will just continue the way they were. I don't see any difference, even if the court ruled otherwise, but there is nothing that is going to change, because we are almost nearing campaign time. So we cannot again start fighting on the floor of the House that we want to this side. No. We're just going to resume seat where we were sitting. The majority, whether majority. But and by the way, there's no minority or majority, you know, because of this broad government. All of us, we are just the same in the House. And we are not going to change, I can assure you that.
But Mheshimiwa, a court ruling is a court ruling. The courts have said. So are you saying that the National Assembly will not abide to that court ruling?
No, there's nothing. You know, there's no time. You know, they delayed, the court delayed to, you know, it is 2.5 years down the line since it happened. So it's just we don't want to make MPs fight over something like that was there before. They took long to make the ruling. I think the ruling has been overtaken by event. It has come late, to be sure.
And of course, one of the important other bills you'll be discussing is some changes you made to the NG-CDF, given that the courts declared them unconstitutional. So as legislators, is this something that will give priority as and when you resume?
Oh, yes. And we are going to defend it, you know. You come from a village, you yourself. You have seen what NG-CDF has done everywhere. Even these courts, they know. Even if they ruled otherwise, but there were some sections which they said that we amend to guide it in the Constitution, and that's what we are doing. So there's no big deal. Yeah.
And in terms of the realignments that we do anticipate in the House, you do know that the Speaker clearly stated that committees will be seeing changes. If, in your view, you do know, which are those committees?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm yet to know. I don't know. But they say that there are going to be some changes on committees, but I don't know. Like myself, I don't know which one I am on. So we are waiting to hear and on the floor of the House.
Will the realignment be based on the broad-based government?
I don't know. I can't say that. Yeah, I can't say that. Yeah.
And when you resume, Mheshimiwa, you do know the main concern that the youth had last year is that Parliament do not listen to the youth. This time around, will you MPs listen to the youth?
But MPs have been listening to the youth. Like in my constituency, I met my youth every time, and so to other MPs also. They meet youth all the time. Maybe we don't know where we've gone wrong or where we failed, but I've seen very many MPs have youth programs in their constituencies. So I don't know, but we meet them. Yeah.
And thank you so much, Mheshimiwa. I can also see the members of Parliament who are addressing inside the media center from Northeastern. They are currently coming out. You do know that the issues they were raising. Let me get the views, Mheshimiwa. We are currently live on KBC. Kindly join us here. Mheshimiwa, maybe we start with you. Kindly join us, Mheshimiwa. Mheshimiwa Fofafi also can join us here. What are the issues you were raising inside the media center?
The issues we are raising is the statement by Governor Natembeya and former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka, which they actually insulted the Somali community in Kenya. And they were upset by the proclamation made by His Excellency the President in abolishing an unconstitutional practice, which was the vetting of Kenyan Somalis when they apply for documentation. And we were calling for Natembeya and former Vice President Kalonzo Musyoka to apologize to the Kenyans and the Somali community for insulting us and calling us names and calling us Al-Shabaab and terrorists. And I think we don't take that kindly. Please respect us. We are Kenyans as you are a Kenyan.
Now, Mheshimiwa, you do know something important is that you are resuming today for the first time. What are the key areas are you going to give priority as members of Northeastern?
You know, for us, we wish to thank His Excellency the President for removing this unconstitutional practice that was in place. And we are there to support him and work with him in uniting and bringing all Kenyans together.
And maybe finally, Mheshimiwa, you do know there was a court ruling in terms of the majority and the minority side. What can you tell Kenyans? Are we expecting a showdown within the House?
Yes, we have not read that.
We haven't read that, and we'll wait and seek the guidance from the leadership of our parties. Yes.
I don't know. I haven't read the judgment. I'll take time to acquaint myself with that and what the prayers were. But the fact of the matter is, we have a national, this country has gone to the brink of collapse many times. And it's not an unusual thing. Somalia collapsed. Ethiopia has been going through crisis for the last 60 years, 70 years. Uganda had gone through what it has gone through. And many countries, South Sudan, Burundi, all of them have had their fair share. It's very reckless for a presidential candidate who is hoping to lead this country. And I'm talking about my friend and my party leader, Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, to go out there and give some kind of that incendiary statement. He might think he's trying to appeal to a section of the society or the population for votes, whatever it is. But the cardinal, sanctified, base principle of any leader worth his salt is to look at the unity of the country. You cannot try and isolate a section of the country the same way Hitler has isolated the Jews, or the Zionists right now are doing it to the Palestinians, and think that you can get votes through that, become a populist person. We are in our country. We were here before anybody else and everybody else. If you read the history, the Kushites and the Nilotes, the Masais and the Somalis and the Dorobos were in Kenya before other communities came in. And we're here to stay.
And Mheshimiwa, given that you've brought up your party leader, given that you're the deputy party leader of Wiper, you know the decision they took. So are we expecting those changes to be made within the House?
What decision they took?
The Wiper kicked you out of the chamber.
No, there's not. When lawyers talk like that, you just wonder what kind of law they studied. Nobody can kick anybody out of a party. You get my point? A party is not a private property. Or it's not your house where you say, I'm kicking you out of my house. No. Nobody can be kicked out of a party. Somebody can only resign, or all the provisions of somebody getting out of the political scene are there. I have not resigned.
So
and
you're essentially saying you're still in Wiper?
I'm in Wiper, fully in Wiper. I'm in Wiper, and we'll see. I brought in a lot of value, added value to Wiper. So I'll decide where to go, whether I want to hang around with some of those lousy, very guys. I'm saying lousy, yes. This is life, yeah?
Yes, this is...
Yeah, some of those lousy, clearly, wajinga.
Okay.
Ambao payuka hapa na kuropokwa na nini. You can't be in a political persuasion with some of the kind of people that are there. But that's again something to be talked about. I haven't said anything about anybody. I just said careless talk touching on the nation of Kenya is not worthy of any leader who wants to lead this country.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, thank you so much. Unfortunately, we have run out of time, and of course, that is Mheshimiwa Honorable Farah talking about the issues about that with the national ID matters, as well as other entries for the National Assembly. Clearly, you've just said that he is still in Wiper, despite the decision that was taken by the Wiper Party. Waiting to see what will happen within the National Assemblies in the majority and in the minorities. For now, back to you, Troy.
Thank you, Abdiaziz Hashim, live from Parliament. And we've had some of the sentiments from the leaders there, and without going to those sentiments, but very quickly, Parliament is also resuming today, and of course the issue of the national ID decree by the President in regards to Kenyans from the northeastern region is something that is going to come up for debate, and also we will be looking at that as well in regards also to the composition of Parliament after the court said that Kenya Kwanza is not the majority party in the National Assembly. Let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
From the bliss of new beginnings to the trials of commitment, this is a celebration of resilience, passion, and the power of togetherness. Join us as we unravel real-life stories, because every journey deserves to be cherished, for better, for worse, on KBC Channel 1.
Radio and climate change resonates deeply with our mission as a national broadcaster to inform, inspire, and empower our audiences. As we mark this day, I am proud of the work our team has done to amplify the voices of environmental scientists, activists, and communities on the front line of climate change. Through insightful programming, we have explored challenges of a warming climate, highlighted sustainable practices, and celebrated stories of resilience from communities.
Wellness is important in our daily lives, so that instead of just surviving, we should be thriving.
Ways to prevent a stroke or heart attack is for you to know what conditions you have. By regular checkup, people don't know they have hypertension, they don't know they have diabetes.
I was pre-diabetic. I was afraid of getting lifestyle diseases because I come from a family that has lifestyle diseases.
How do you know if your cough is due to a serious condition? We'll have some answers. Stay well
and strive to make every day a healthy day.
Welcome back to KBC News Check. Many thanks indeed for keeping us company. We are looking at the legislative agenda, bearing in mind that both houses resume sittings this afternoon. And as you have seen, full entry in regards to the NG-CDF. It's come to the Parliament away from Senate. There's also legislation, representation, oversight, and also there's the big question of the majority rule. And allow me to rope in my panel of experts. Of course, we are also joined by Brian Muraru in the sign language interpretation on the bottom of your screen. But gentlemen, Diego, before we took that break, we've had some sentiments from some of the members of Parliament, and especially from the northeastern part of Kenya, in regards to the decree that was made by the president a few days ago, actually last week, in regards to removing the barriers for especially for the vetting exercise when it comes to the national IDs of so many people. But before we look at what some of the MPs have mentioned, is that Bilali said that it's going to be house business as usual. Mheshimiwa Waluke says that it has been overtaken by events, the ruling by the High Court. But at the end of the day, we are a country that is bound by our rules and the constitution of the country. Where does this leave us?
Thank you, Ben. I kind of agree with Bilali that the ruling could be right, but inconsequential. It might not find room for any form of implementation because of the lapse of time. And number two, already what we called Azimio, then it's not the real Azimio.
Yes.
A number of parties have walked out, and the part of Azimio has again joined the ruling party, the government. And so the ruling probably is a short-term political game. Because if the president needed to change some people in the parliament, including the speaker and others, such a ruling would really give him a better chance. That now you see, it's not me, it's the courts. So the courts have said this, and so we need really to divide the positions in the parliament. So it can be misused politically, however, personally, why I sit. And I know we have a good president and a deputy president, but I think, Ben, that ruling is inconsequential at the moment. Yes.
Bilali, let's shift matters to security, and allow me to just pick a few sentiments from the members of Parliament. I will not use the language that has been used by one of them, but they have talked about they actually were having a presser there, so we are expecting that news article maybe in our subsequent bulletin in regards to the presidential decree. And they have pointed out, one of them being the Wiper party leader, they have castigated him in regards to that, and a number of Kenyans, and also the Governor Natembeya. But it's matter of security. This is not something that we can take lightly, and especially when it comes from one of our neighbors, who is Somalia, who has had issues since the 90s.
Yes, of course. Before I go to that, let me throw you to the rearrangement of the committees. Of course, we are expecting the rearrangement of the committees based on how they support the government of the day. I agree with him, Diego, that most committees, chairman and members, others will be removed because of their stand on matters of maybe their areas and what they think that people are talking and what they think that their parties are not doing right.
So what you're saying is that they could be following up on loyalties?
Yes, of course.
As opposed to
non-loyal.
Another thing, do you think the impeachment of Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua could also form basis for the realignment of committees in the National Assembly?
Yes, of course, Mr. Ben. The realignment of the committees in both houses, not only in the Senate, but also in the National Assembly, will be affected or will be affected due to the royalty of individuality members. This includes people or members, honorable members, who have been supporting the former deputy president. Of course, those who are also supporting the so-called wiper to take over the government in 2027, those one will be removed. And again, let us go back again to the ruling of the judges. The ruling of the judges will not affect anything because these numbers are enough to turn around. And let me tell you, members of parliament are friendly when they get into parliament. One thing that these people will be fighting for, not subdividing themselves to maybe political party, they'll be fighting for who become the members in certain committees. The issue of how honorable members from my good friend from Farah Madim, of course, they have articulated issues on the ID, which is a security concern. The decree by His Excellency Dr. William Ruto is that he has removed the vetting of individuals, not the IDs, the vettings of individuals who wants to acquire the Kenyan National Identity Card. If this, mostly these people, the committees on that side of national security were asking questions such as, who is your grandfather, who is your grandmother, and something like that. Because, you know, Ben, let us not hide this. Individuals, like now from the Tanzanian side, when a Tanzanian cross over to Kenya and he wants to acquire an ID of Kenya, of course, Ben, without even talking to him, habari yako mzuri, you will realize that the accent of these individuals comes from Tanzania, isn't it?
Let's assume that they speak both on both entry points.
Yes.
In every corner of Kenya, we have Maasais in Kenya and Tanzania. Yeah. Trust me, it will be very hard to distinguish if you're talking about accents. Let's look at Turkana. Let's look at Somalis as well. They share the same culture. They share the same language. So if you're talking about if they have to be vetted via or looking at the accent or how they present themselves, it will be a tall order.
It will. It will. Yeah. I think in the area of the accent, clearly like Somalis, probably for Kiswahili people, because Tanzanians have a better polished Kiswahili than us, there couldn't be the difference. But for Somalis...
my point is, there's nowhere in our laws that we've ever used accent as a way of vetting anyone.
But Ben, let me tell you, the way I agree with him and he has just said, Diego. You see, in Tanzania, of course, you will know that this guy is a Tanzanian. In Uganda, of course, you will also know their accent, isn't it? Their accent, that these are Ugandan. But when it comes now, I think that's why the vetting, of course, the vetting was crossover. It was in our area, Orohoro there, Lunga, something like that. Then you go to Tarime border, you get these guys. When you go to Malaba border and Busia, of course, you get communities living from this side and this side. Yeah. Of course, the communities on the other side, if you have noticed, their accents are different.
Okay, away from the accent and maybe what we could be looking at, we are looking at matter security here.
Yes.
And the presidential directive did away with years of extreme vetting, which many Kenyans, some Kenyans, opine that it should have been left that way because of the security challenge that we've had with Somali for years, and especially when it comes to the Al-Shabaab. On the other hand, other Kenyans argued that indeed this is something that should have been done years ago because that is part of discrimination, and as Kenyans, we are all Kenyans. Let's pick it from there.
Then, if you ask me, and sorry for cutting you short, there are two main and key factors here.
Actually, you're a security
yes,
expert.
Yes, I'm a security expert. And one very key factor is security. You see, what informed the decision of vetting before, that now we wouldn't say it's no longer there. We have no issue for vetting. So I really want to believe that the decision of our president was well informed, because I do not feel as a security person that we do not have threat from Somali. I, however, again say that Somalis are Kenyans. If they are living in Kenya, they were born in Kenya, there is all that proof. They should have the right as Kenyan to be registered as Kenyans without harassment. But then some people, especially the local leaders there, unless the integrity is very high, they can misuse the presidential announcement to bring in other Somalis from other quarters who might now become the threat to Kenyans. Number two, now that is to Somalis. We have Luos in Uganda. We have Ndigos in Tanzania. What if they would want the same rights that I want to be registered as a Kenyan and I'm a Ndigo, or rather I'm a Luo? I mean, the brother to Awoli, who was the deputy president to Kenya, is a minister in Uganda. How will the government manage different quotas of rights of people without risking the Kenyan security? But again, as I said earlier, I really want to believe that the decision of the president was well informed in terms of intelligence, and he has all the machinery for the same. And what the member of parliament, Farah Marim, spoke was not right. Because again, as much as they've been given the rights to register as Kenyans, which is okay, I do not think he really spoke well when he mentioned the Kushites who are the first Kenyans. It's like the others are the second Kenyans. And talking ill of other Kenyans. I mean, if we are Kenyans, and that's why the president brought in another deputy president, because he needs a unifying factor. We need all of us to speak as Kenyans.
All right. But Diego, some other Kenyans like the Turkana, the Pembas, or who have had issues in getting an ID for years, would argue, why does this directive only
for Northeastern
take care of Northeastern people who live in the Northeastern region of the Kenya?
That is something that the president should prepare, either to open the door for everyone, or rather to also bring up some other restrictions. That as much as I said this is an open door, people can register without many questioning and all that. I think people should have a root. Who is your father? Where did you come from? I mean, if you just give people identities for your country without knowing their roots, then we might have, you see, in the level of presidency, you must look at the future. For today, you could have what we call short-term benefits. But what are we talking about 30 years to come, 50 years to come? Can we bring criminals that in few years' time again, the Kenya will go back to where they were? But I am not advocating that the Kenyan Somalis should be vetted. I think they have the right, as all of us have, that if they are Kenyans, they should be given identification. But at least the interior ministry should have a way of knowing through this person who was born in Kenya.
Bilal, you also come from the border of Kenya and Tanzania, and I believe there are some Kenyans there who would argue the same way that we've had the northern corridor taken care of in terms of registration. We are also Kenyans, and we're part of Kenya. So these restrictions should be removed for all Kenyans.
Yes, Ben, these restrictions should be removed for all Kenyans. And I'm telling you this, and for free. We have Kenyans, real Kenyans that I know, who are now over 30 years and above, who have not been given the IDs at the border of Tanzania and Kenya, and they are Kenyans. They rely on other jobs, these small casual jobs, so that they can survive. Mm-hmm. So I think the president should also go further and also talk about the people who are bordering Uganda and Kenya, and also Tanzania and Kenya.
And Turkana as well.
And Turkana as well. Another thing, as we talk about security, because security, number one, is very important. Mm-hmm. And you remember during the shifters, that's culminated to what? To the vetting of IDs.
Yeah.
Are you getting it?
Yeah.
During the shifters, we must know, we know the history of this country. Mm-hmm. So as we go further to issue the IDs to our fellow citizens, brothers and sisters, mm-hmm. let us also be cautious on how we issue these IDs, because one thing that Diego has just said, that maybe the local, this vetting was reverted back again to the chief. Mm-hmm. You remember?
Yes.
To the chief. The chief will be a primary giver of information.
Yes.
And attest that you belong to that community, and you are so and so. Then if this chief is misled in terms of corruption, then of course we'll have many loopholes and potholes to identity card. Let us now throw again to legislative agenda set. Mm-hmm. Of course, we know that a legislative agenda is a set of key goals that a government may want to achieve. Mm-hmm. One of it may be rising issues such as the vetting of ID cards. And I'm seeing it going to the Parliament, both the houses mm-hmm. of the Senate and the National Assembly, depending on the same issue.
All right. Diego, there are some people who have opened, and one of the leaders who have talked about this has been the Wiper leader, Honorable Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, who says that this could be tied to matters politics, And the decree coming just, a few hours after chiefs were abducted in Mandera. Yeah. This is political. Do you share the same opinion?
Of course, Kalonzo has the right to speak, and of course to speak his mind, and I believe we cannot rule it out. And of course, I do not want really to say whether it is a fact or not a fact, but mm-hmm. It cannot be ruled out. Mm-hmm. I, however, think if somebody is a Kenyan, has a right to vote to whoever they want, whether whoever give him the national identification card, mm-hmm. or any other person, because now you are Kenyan. So if it's a political game, then it can be miscalculated, because they can vote to anyone. You never know what will happen tomorrow. Yep. But in a place where the chiefs were abducted, 5 chiefs, that's one sign to show that there is high level of insecurity. Mm-hmm. Because a chief is a representative of the president at the ground level. If this person can be abducted, not 1, not 2 chiefs, 5 chiefs, and then even the government within that place cannot tell who abducted the chiefs, and you want everybody to own the identification without prior investigation on their whereabouts and all that. It's a risky factor. I will be sincere, it's a risky factor.
Do you believe that this agenda should also make way in Parliament so that it can be
it should. It should, because
Parliament as well?
Very good. Parliamentarians represent us. We elected them to go and represent us. And they make law. they should consider. And also, they have the right to request His Excellency the President. Probably he has the intelligence on why that is good for Kenya. They might share it, and then they can look at the cons and disadvantages and advantages. Because again, the way my brother Bilali was saying, every other community that is disadvantaged in terms of being a Kenyan and they are Kenyans should be given leeway to become Kenyans. In fact, Kenyans along Tanzanian border, Kenyans along Ugandan border, there is no risk factor completely. So why shouldn't they be given their national identification cards?
Yes, Bilal.
On matters, chiefs, I want to say this as a political scientist, that sometimes the issue of chiefs, I don't know, and I cannot put to my mouth or the citizen of this country whether it was real chiefs who were abducted. Did you ask yourself a question? All right,
I think if we will, we will move away from the fact that which we were following, because if we decide to now look at if indeed there were Kenyans, if they have their IDs, I think we will be drifting from the point. And at the end of the day, we know, and from the information that we have, and the president mentioned it. He mentioned it.
It's in the public domain that the chiefs were abducted.
Domain, and he said himself, despite the fact that the chiefs have been abducted, I'm sleeping here. You know,
three
that
days.
is the president. So if we decide to
go, no, I'm not
see whether they were real chiefs and everything, I think we get
I'm not sidelining Ben.
Yes.
I'm just saying this, that I want also for you to note, and the citizen, and even my brother here. Yeah, he said that he will not be pushed and he will not be scared by the chiefs who are arranging where these meetings. Are you getting it? So, but you must remember, as we go on, that politics sometimes are made by the owners. The owners are the drivers, the executive who drives this. We have seen where my brother is a security expert, where we want aid. And when we want aid, we have seen where politics is played. Are you getting me? And I'm not saying that politics was played here in
Mandela.
In Mandela. No. I respect His Excellency, and the way he said it is true. That's why I wanted to come. It is true that these people were abducted.
Okay.
Are you getting it? But
I'm lost.
No, it is true that this. I was asking a question,
and
whether
actually,
it is true or not.
as we speak, the five, we do not know their whereabouts.
Yeah, but are these people the abductors? Are they the Al-Shabaab one? We know?
Either way,
we don't know.
we are not quite sure. What we know is that they were abducted. Either by people, whether it's Al-Shabaab.
Whether they were abducted by the government. You know, I'm trying to get to my brother Birali that the government could have played some politics. And they abducted themselves. You see, when people abducted themselves.
Yes.
But where we cannot say that really the president can do that.
Yes.
But again, to some extent, if you think too deep, five chiefs to be abducted at the same time, it doesn't really hand up. However, the information we have from the government is that 5 chiefs were abducted.
Yes.
And we are praying that they are seen, they are found alive.
And especially for their families. That's why I'm really drifting away from the politics.
You are drifting, Ben. You are drifting. You see,
Yeah.
we are scholars. I'm a scholar.
Either
again,
my point is,
the student will ask me.
My point is, at the end of the day, these are people with families.
Yes.
You know? So
Yes.
I wouldn't want us to really touch on the politics of either they kidnapped themselves or they orchestrated that.
Factors.
Because at the end of the day, they are leaders and they are family. They have families as well. Away from that, Diego, let's look at NG-CDF.
Yes.
And you know very well the role of an MP.
Yes.
I think you've tried it once or twice.
Yes, I've in too.
NG-CDF, the court declared that it's unconstitutional. In as much as It is praised and castigated in equal measure. It has helped, and especially in education sector. It has helped in terms of roads machinani.
Yeah.
It has helped in electrification in some parts.
Yes.
The court said that it is indeed, and this is not the first time that we've landed in court with the NG-CDF. How can the members of parliament either streamline it well so that it may cater for what they had initially planned, as opposed to us always going to court in regards to the NG-CDF?
You know, Ben, the member of parliament makes law. They legislate. That's their core function. Mm-hmm. And it's really a shame that the court can say this is not a law, and the courts do not do laws. And whoever is being challenged is the person who does the law. Mm-hmm. So whichever the decision the court gave, I'm sure that there is a ruling, there is a written ruling. They should go back to the parliament, let the parliament amend it to make it a law. Because the fact is, the NG-CDF benefits Kenyans. Now, I have seen more fruits of that than even the counties, because the last time I said I disagreed with my brother was about the way the counties are utilizing their resources for Mwananchi. Whereas, to some extent, some counties are doing that. I don't think majority of them are doing, they are really doing well with their budgets. But for NG-CDF, then it's up to the parliament to sit down and amend it to make it a law, if it's not a law. And if the courts are saying it's not a law or it's unconstitutional, then the parliament should sit down and see how to make it constitutional. It's their right.
Bilali, still on the same, more or less like the doctrine of separation of powers, which dictates that indeed, the lawmakers, parliament is independent, so is the judiciary, and so is the executive. Looking at the decision that by the court, and especially when it comes to the constitution of the majority party in the National Assembly, some argue that we are the lawmakers, we make the law. There should be the doctrine of separation of powers. Do you open the same? Do you have the same?
Yeah, thank you. We have got three arms of government. One arm is the executive. The executive are the lawmakers because they include the members of the parliament. Then we have got the judiciary, who are regarded as the laws of the pen. They use the pen. And whatever the judges have written and come with, that one turns into law. Then, of course, when it comes now to legislatures or the members of parliament, both house, on terms of, you remember, let me draw you back again to how government is formed, then we reach there. A government is formed by ideas. Then that ideas, Ben, is transitioned into party manifestos. Then after that party manifestos have been transitioned, then of course they
maybe to bring you to the gist of it, I'm talking about the doctrine of separation of powers. Some members of parliament, as you've heard Waluke has mentioned, is that we overtaken by time. A very practical example is the Finance Bill 2023, where we got the decision even after the 2024 had already been passed by Parliament, but we know how that panned out. My point is, just like MPs say, in as much as we respect the courts, there should be a doctrine of separation of powers where we made the law, it becomes law. We, the Speaker of the National Assembly, in his wise counsel, had noted that Kenya Kwanza is the majority party. The court has overturned that.
Ben, I think you are lost there. Let me tell you, these members of parliament, together with the Senate, have parties. These parties, that's why I was drawing you back. These parties have manifestos. And this, I told you before, that they agreed when this regime took power, they made some agreements with other political parties,
Either way,
including UGM.
Even if we have 100 parties in parliament,
when we come to
that's parliament.
Separation.
The separation of power I'm talking about is between the judiciary and parliament, leave alone the parties themselves.
Yes,
leave alone the parties.
Yes.
Because all parties, 100 of them, they are the ones who form the National Assembly.
Yes, but remember one thing, that these members of the parliament, together with the Senate, are the lawmakers. They make law. They make law through bills.
We are on the same page on
those
that.
bills goes to, are assumed, are signed to law by His Excellency the President. Then it comes to law. That law should be used by the judiciary and every Kenyans here, including the executive and the members of the parliament.
I to some extent I agree with the Bilali. However, the manifestos are not the law.
Exactly.
It's just
and even if we have 5 or 100 parties,
yes,
they all form.
Those are pathways of development. They do not form part of the law. In fact, the Kenyan law is governed by the Constitution.
Yes.
And that's why the judiciary...
disagree?
No, just a minute. Of course, you will disagree. You know, there is what we call party laws, which are not national laws. They follow that. You can be punished by the party out of those laws. But then there is a constitution.
How do we call those laws?
Which ones?
The one that you can be punished by parties.
By parties, you see, like us in security, we call them standard operation procedures. If you bypass that in security industry, then you are legally supposed to be punished. And the punishment is well stipulated. That if you do this will happen. Just like the way the Kalonzo can expel an MP who won through Wiper Party because of their laws. Those are the party laws. But now we have a constitution. And this constitution is the one that the legislature actually contributed to. And then the judges, the judiciary, is supposed to make sure everyone now follows what? Follows the constitution. So even if the parliament passes a bill that contravenes the constitution, that is illegal. And that's why we have battles between the legislature and the judiciary. And then the executive signs whatever is passed by the legislature into law. So there must be checks and balances. And whoever does that is judiciary. They say, surely, if the majority leader is supposed to have more members of parliament in parliament, then according to pre-elections pacts and agreements, this one has more members. But you see, Ben, as my brother here said earlier, we are in Kenya. There were pre-elections agreements and there were post-elections agreements.
Yes.
So if some parties moved on after the elections and they joined the ruling party, then you cannot say they are not in the ruling party. The same way Kibaki took Kalonzo. You remember, was that in 2007?
Yes.
When Kalonzo was in the opposition, but when Kibaki won, he took Kalonzo
as the vice president.
As the vice president.
Yes.
So that was post-election kind of an agreement. And it happens. It happens. However, I believe purely, yes.
Ben, one thing that I want to also disagree with him is that party manifestos turns when a party has captured power, because the idea is to capture power. These manifestos are turned, and they are, because they say to you whether you are a voter to vote for them. Then this manifesto comes to the parliament for them to discuss, and then their bills, they change into bills.
No. Manifesto to parliament to be discussed?
You see, manifestos, those are ideas. They are laws.
I think I will disagree with you there.
For instance, let me give you this. For instance, we had the manifestos. We had Kenya Kwanza manifesto, isn't it?
I don't know how manifesto has to do with the doctrine of separation of powers.
You see, let me tell you one thing. We have got NG-CDF which was passed. The bill was passed, isn't it? Isn't it? The bill was passed or it was not passed. Then we have got the housing, the affordable housing, which was passed again. People are being, payslip holders are being deducted.
All right. And because of the interest of
1.5.
time, gentlemen, because of the interest of time, there's just one more question. It's still tied to the legislation agenda. We saw USAID. I see a number of international media houses call it USAID. But the Trump administration said that we really need to relook at that. And the biggest hit has been on developing countries just like Kenya. And a good example is on the HIV and AIDS programs, tuberculosis, and a number of health. What it means and what it shows is that the country is heavily bent on some of its policy on aid, and especially when it comes to health. Is this the right time that MPs also relook at the health sector in terms of the aid that we receive so that we may align them with the exchequer?
Yes, Ben, it is the right time. And in fact, what the president of the United States, Donald Trump, suggested, of course, this is a high opener for most of the African countries, so that we don't only do dependency theories, but we also, as we took it as self-governance, so that we can govern ourselves in terms of security, in terms of health, in terms of education, and everything. So there is a need for our MPs, and I'm expecting members of parliament to debate on health issues, more so the HIV, so that we get money, more money in that sector, so that we can be, instead of being given the aid by the outside country and be controlled which bills to be passed and which bills not to be passed, let them bring us a bill that will assist us, the brothers and the sisters who are affected with this disease, so that they can get medicine.
From the exchequer?
From our budget. Yes, from our budget.
Opposed
from
to
our pay.
Diego, because of the interest of time, I would want to you to weigh in on that in terms of what we should expect our MPs to do. This is something that has been on the lips of everyone since USA decided to, first of all, to put on hold help from USA.
Yeah, I think USAID has been of great help to a majority of either undeveloped or developing countries, especially Kenya. And then it's time to every leadership to think on how they can be self-reliance, self-sustenance. This thing of looking at the other countries for your own issues, it may not work. And I think that's why the president was very keen on the matters of universal health care, because that is the main road of health sector in Kenya. But then almost 70% of universal health care is financed from external, maybe probably NGOs, other nations and all that. And if the Kenyan government will not discuss in parliament, as my brother has said, and come up with the solutions to how the areas which were covered by USAID, how they are going to get cash for the same, then we might lose some Kenyans. We might lose some Kenyans. And I believe this is the right time that the government should be earned on every coin that it gets. Yeah.
Your closing remarks, a minute, kindly.
Again, thank you, Ben. I think we pray that the Kenyan economy comes to its best. And of course, I'm condoling with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation for you losing your long-time friend and broadcaster, London Boltella, and of course the Senate Speaker's father. We condole with them, and I wish Kenyans the best, and I wish the government of the day the best to give us something.
10 seconds for your closing statement.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, viewers, for listening to KBC, where knowledge is created also. And we let us be calm as we discuss issues of identity cards on our international boundary. Thank you very much, viewers, and let's meet again here at KBC.
Charles Bilali, International Relations and Governance Expert. And just next to him, we have Diego Ngogi Wilson, who is also an expert in matters governance there. We have been looking at the legislative agenda, and as we have said, full entry for our MPs, both in the Senate and also in the National Assembly, but other things that keep cropping up. But what we as Kenyans deserve is legislation, oversight, and also representation as enshrined in the Constitution. And we are hoping that they will also look at these matters objectively as well. Many thanks indeed for joining us. My name is Bentro Njue. And Brian Muraru has been our sign language interpreter for this live program. I'm now giving the baton to the Swahili desk with Kurunzi Mashinani and Tamrini.